Hello, all you out there, all you peoples that are watching. It's time for another movie review vlog. I don't know if you can hear in the background there. I've got the stove going. I mean the stove. And normally, I would damp it way down for while I'm filming, so you couldn't hear it. But as it happens, I am filming this on one of the coldest nights of the year, so it is frigid cold out there. I mean, if you live in Siberia or even Wisconsin, it's probably like, you wuss. But I live in California, so, I mean, Northern California, it gets pretty cold up here too. But anyway, fire stays on, and if it's loud, you'll just have to deal with it, I'm afraid. Anyway, as you probably know by now, because you can read labels, I saw the Black Panther movie, which, as I filmed this, I was just out a few days ago, and it's getting a lot of press, and so I went and saw it, and I'm reviewing it for you. Yes. So let's see. I guess I'll start out with a brief sort of précis. Alright, the basic, for those of you who aren't familiar with the character at all, and I mean, up until the movie came out, I don't think the Black Panther wasn't one of those characters that everybody knew about. I mean, he's well known, but he's not like Captain America, or, Iron Man, or one of Spider-Man, I don't know. I don't know the precise demographics of who knows what. But anyway, if you're not 100% familiar with the Black Panther, here's his deal. Well, really, and this is the sets up the movie, so I'll just it's all centers around the fictional African country of Wakanda. Its deal is that in the middle of the country there is this mountain, which is actually a giant freaking asteroid or meteor or whatever that fell from space uncounted centuries ago, and is chock full of vibranium, which is this super useful metal that you can do just about anything with, and using this vibranium, the Wakandans have become one of the most technologically advanced, if not the technologically advanced. I think in this version they are undoubtedly the most technologically advanced people on Earth. They are, the Wakanda has technology, the likes of which, you normally only see in like Star Wars. It's super sort of, but they have in the movie. I don't think this is the case in the comics, or at least it isn't anymore. But in the movie, they have maintained very strict sort of isolation and only limited contact with the world, and not letting them know about the rest, not letting them know about the fact that they're a technological powerhouse, for fear that, they'll be invaded, or their technology will be used for to make things worse in the rest of the world, so the Black Panther is actually is an inherited position filled by the ruler of the country, the ruler of Wakanda. Each king of Wakanda becomes the Black Panther. He is not only the tribe's ruler, but his but it's I should say the tribe, the country's ruler, also its protector, its religious leader in a sense, because he has links with the Panther gods. You know, he's essentially the country's superhero king. You know, overall focus. And as the movie begins, T'Challa, who is the latest in the line of kings, is just he's already taken the mantle of the Black Panther. If you've seen Captain America: Civil War, he was in that, you know, wearing the suit and jumping around and being cool. But he's only just now officially being sworn in as king. And you know what? Actually, most of the rest of the plot is kind of difficult to talk about without getting to spoilers. So I won't here, at least not just yet. But suffice it to say that the central issue of the film winds up being like, should we keep on, you know, letting people think that Wakanda is a place for just like, you know, where we graze cows, or do we, you know, reveal ourselves to the world for good or for ill? And that's the basic. Right. So that's what the movie is. What did I think of it? I thought it was good. I'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details a little later, but overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. No, like I said, nitty-gritty. But so let's before that, let's talk about the characters who's played. Black Panther is played by Chadwick Boseman, who, excuse me, is not an actor I'm familiar with, but he did a pretty good job. The character is a bit on the overly stoic sort of side. You know, he's very noble. He's very, you know, I must do for the good of my people, I must, you know. He's not exactly the life of the party, you know, but then, you know, he's also that way in the comics. He's one of those, you know, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That, you know, that he's got that whole deal going with him. He's someone who's very much concerned with doing the right thing, which doesn't always, you know, translate to a super vibrant character. But that's fine. You know, that's who he is. And for, you know, all things considered, you know, he did a pretty darn good job, I'd say. Letitia Wright plays Shuri, who's his sister. And actually, in the comics, she actually becomes the Black Panther for a while. I think she's dead at the moment in the comics. I could be wrong about that. But here she's, I'm glad to say, you know, a bit. I haven't seen much of her in the comics myself, but she always seemed a little weird because it's like she's one of those characters that kind of showed up out of nowhere and it's like, I will be the new Black Panther now, and the comic will be all about me, and then it was like that for a while, and then no, we hit reset. That's not happening here, thank goodness. Although I think there are intimations that she could be the Black Panther if anything ever, you know. But no, she's the I'm not sure what you'd call her, like the head of technological research or something, and it's a little. She's like T'Challa's younger sister, right? And so he's not exactly ancient. So she's like a teenager, and you know she's supposed to be like this big technological genius. She's like his Q, and I have to say one of the things I'm a little annoyed with in the main sort of Marvel comics universe is that there are a lot of like young teenage, mostly young teenage girls, a few boys, but at any rate, kids or teenagers who are ever so smart. They're like, you know, geniuses running around, and it's like, I can, you know, this sort of that can be fun if it's done right, but there's like, I don't even know how many of them there are at this point. There's like 10 or something. There's and some of them are kind of being touted to the skies as, oh, this is a cool new character, and they're really not. But that's not paint the movie with the sins of the comic. You know, it's the Marvel universe hasn't had the MCU, I should say, hasn't had this sort of character before, so I'm fine with, as long as it's not every other movie that they do this, no problem. She's fine. She has a good sort of banter back and forth with T'Challa. She's the one he unbends around the most. You know, they're convincing as like brother and sister. Then you have Lupita Nyong'o. That's probably, I think it's one of those African names where they're like, you know, so it's Nyong'o. I can't do it. I'm too white. You know, I can't do those names. But whatever. She plays she plays Nakia, who is Black Panther's love interest, and there's this whole thing where the Black Panther has kind of a ceremonial female bodyguard called the Dora Milaje. In the comic, they're kind of like potential wives or something like that. It's like they're his entourage, and he could choose any one of them to be wives, but he chooses not to, so as to maintain the. Anyway, that's not the case here. Here they're just a bunch of, you know, awesome warriors who are specifically devoted to the king, and she used to be one of them, but she's kind of gone off doing her own thing. She's like a spy for the kingdom elsewhere in the world, and she's kind of like, she's one of the main ones arguing, you know, we really ought to let other people, you know, have some of our awesome tech. So, yeah, she's not super not a super important character, but she is, you know, she's not bad. Then there's Danai Gurira as Okoye, who is the head of the Dora Milaje, and she's addressed as general, so I guess she heads the country's armed forces or whatever. It's never quite made clear, but she's kind of awesome. She's like one of those. She is deeply devoted to her country and is all about doing her duty and protecting the realm, and she can kick butt and take names. You know, she's aside from the Black Panther himself, she gets most of the awesome sort of action scenes. She's cool. And there's Martin Freeman plays Agent Ross, who is kind of he's an American agent. He's kind of getting dragged into these things. He was actually he's inherited from the comics where he was kind of like a point of view character, and the whole thing was like how this very kind of white and nerdy or not nerdy, but kind of bit socially awkward sort of character wound up getting dragged into the middle of this whole thing. Is like, what's going on? And I kind of wish they kept a little bit of that, because that was very funny. But he's pretty good here. He's a more competent sort of a type. Yeah, there's not actually much to say about him. He's pretty cool. He's a part of the great big outside world, and another sort of complicated factor in all this. Also there's Angela Bassett who plays his mom, and Forrest Whitaker, who plays is it Yuri or Zuri? I can't remember, but he's like an important sort of an important Wakandan guy. I don't know. I think he's like the equivalent of like the prime minister or the head, whatever. He's a bit important to the plot, but he's not. They're both good actors. They do a good job. But excuse me, that's the last of the good guys, really. And a long list it was. And now to the bad guys. The thing with the bad guys, I have a, as you may know, I'm generally, I try and avoid spoilers in these vlogs, but it's almost impossible to talk about my opinion of the bad guys without getting into spoilers. So I'll tell you what, I am going to put up on the screen the point in the video at which I stop talking spoilers, and you can skip to that. If you feel you'd feel like you'd rather not know this stuff. Okay, so yeah, I am putting it up now, and I am talking about the villains now, right? Okay, if you're still here, you had your chance. The two main villains are Ulysses. I think it's Ulysses Claw, or Claw anyway, and Killmonger, Eric Killmonger. And the way it's all kind of set up, you're kind of led to believe that Claw will be the main villain. But in fact, in like a twist, it turns out to be Killmonger. And I'm not too wild about this. This is something that Marvel has actually, and DC, and no, excuse me, not DC, and Disney, who owns them, as you know, has actually been doing a fair amount lately, and I'm not too wild about it. I really do prefer villains that you just stick with from point A to point B, and you know that they're villains, and you get to enjoy them as the main baddie the whole time. I really do think that works better. Not that I'm saying twists can't work, but I mean, the thing is, I was actually really looking forward to seeing Claw, because he's quite a fun villain in the comics. He's not. I was going to call him the Black Panther's Joker, but I don't think that's quite true, actually. I mean, because the Joker is kind of a constant presence in Batman's life, and Claw is not a constant presence in the Black Panthers, but he is a significant villain, and it would have made perfect sense for him to be the central the central antagonist, and it's also a shame because I actually really liked he's Claw in this movie. He's played by Andy Serkis, who you've probably heard of, and he's like one of those kind of comical villains who is at the same time, he has an air of menace to him because he's so obviously completely off his gourd. He's like constantly going, he's like totally, he's totally, on the verge of just completely flipping out. And he's got a sound blaster for one hand, which is awesome. And it's in the comics. He actually he has a sound blaster in one hand, and he becomes like a being of pure living sound, which is complete nonsense, and in the best way. And it's like, he's this weird character who I always look forward to seeing again because he's just so bizarre, and Andy Serkis does a good job of doing that, and it's not like I dislike Killmonger. He's played by Michael B. Jordan, and Killmonger is actually, he's pretty good. He has his origin is tied very deeply into the plot, and you really get to understand why this guy is how he is. He's kind of like this psycho ex-CIA agent with ties to Wakanda that I won't get into because it's and is like, he wants to go. He's like an extremist. What's the one thing that coming to him as black nationalist? I'm not sure, but he's very much, he's one of those like, the black people gotta fight back, man. He's one of those like, his scheme is he wants to give these vibranium weapons to everyone around the world that's been oppressed by the man, and they're going to start this whole huge war, and Wakanda will rule the world. Which, I mean, it's a good plot, but it's just, the thing is, Killmonger is a much more grounded and sympathetic villain, but he's much less entertaining and interesting than Claw. Claw is just so much fun to watch. He's like such a jerk, and he's so crazy. He's going, who would you rather watch? I mean, I don't know. I like Killmonger, but he's just not as interesting. And it would have been, it would have been pretty easy to keep them both in. Just have the Claw transition to like working alongside Killmonger somehow. And have it be, in the end, the Black Panther. Because the thing is, Claw has a deep connection to T'Challa in the, in the arch nemesis sort of way. He killed his dad. He was the guy responsible for that. So, it's a big part of T'Challa's motivation earlier on in the film. He said, I want to kill Claw!
I've got to bring him back to justice or whatever, I gotta get Claw. He's an enemy of Wakanda and he killed my daddy. I am going to bring him back. And then it's like, Killmonger turns on Claw and he's like, whoop, I'm just going to use him as my entry point to Wakanda. And from then on, nobody cares about Claw anymore. And it's like, you didn't have to do that, You could have kept Claw, who is this interesting and cool villain, and just wove him into the plot somehow. Like, Killmonger's like, okay, I'm in charge now. And Claw's like, hey, whatever, I'm just in this for the money. If I can make some money alongside you, I could work with this, And then you keep, like, Claw as T'Challa's villain, and Killmonger as Wakanda's villain. And it could have just been a two-pronged thing. But they didn't do that, so... Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna... Oh, and the one thing that I found a little annoying was that in the comics, Claw is spelled K-L-A-W. Here, it's spelled K-L-A-U-E. Claw. Which, okay, it's more realistic. But who cares about realistic? Claw. I mean, it sounds exactly the same, so who cares? I mean, why not just keep the fun, silly spelling? I don't get people sometimes with these things. But anyway, moving on. Spoilers ending now. There's also this guy M'Baku, who I forgot to write down who the actor's name is. I'm sorry, but in the comics, M'Baku is actually a villain called the Man-Ape, who has the whole thing. He's themed around this mystic white gorilla. This is a rival thing to the... That's kind of sort of been dropped. In this version, he's like part of a tribe in Wakanda who are kind of they're kind of like the Basques are to Spain. They're kind of, we're separate, we're different, and we don't like you very much. He's that's sort of so he's kind of he's not one of the main enemies, but he has like a I don't like you, T'Challa. I don't like the way you do things. He's kind of fun, because he's the ape theming is done a little more subtly than it's done in the comics, and it's kind of fun. It is kind of treated as an actual sort of totemic thing for his segment, his tribe, the same way the Panther is for Wakanda as a whole, and it's interesting. Which let's move on to the like I said, the nitty gritty. This film is kind of being lauded as being, oh, it's great for, it's great to have a black, black-centric sort of movie, with a strong black lead and so, and, fair enough, although I could name a few movies but, what I find more interesting about it is that it's, Africanness, which I actually kind of identify with a bit. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before on camera, but I actually, Africa is part of my heritage because my mom is from there. She is a Zimbabwean, and I have country. Excuse me. No, I have family. I have family there, in Africa. This shirt I'm wearing is actually, it was a gift to me from, I don't remember if my mom brought it back for me or if it was a gift from, but whatever. This is, depicting a Hui game reserve, I think, or wildlife, whatever. It's like a nature park, wildlife preserve sort of thing in South Africa, which is pretty popular and apparently a pretty cool place. I believe I visited it when I was last there, although that was years ago. But anyway, so I have a bit of a connection to Africa, and it's I've always kind of thought it'd be cool having like an African themed sort of this sort of thing, and it is cool. It's very nicely done design wise. Wakanda is actually very cleverly. It's like all the technology, like they have like these ships that fly around in and so on and so forth. They all look very African in the way they're designed. It's like you can really see the influence of like African artwork and like iconography and so forth in how this technology. It's like, you know, the Western world, so this is based around European sort of stuff. This is based around African stuff, and started happening a long time ago, back when you can see how it would work that way. It's very cleverly done. I mean, like even the city itself is like it's very high tech, but it's not Western high tech. It's you can see the influence of like this is a city that has been around since the days when it actually was like grass huts and so forth, and the people who built the grass huts ultimately built the skyscrapers. You know, it's a bit difficult to explain, but you see it for yourself. So in that regard, that was pretty cool. And it's another thing people were saying is like, oh, you know, there's a lot of cool sort of female leads, and yeah, that is true. Most of the important heroic characters besides T'Challa are women. You know, like I said, there's his girlfriend and the general and his sister, and they're all these, you know, butt-kicking young black ladies, you know, kicking butt, and that's cool, you know. That there should always be room for more of that sort of thing. It's awesome. Actually, I think I've more or less said my piece. Yeah, I do think it could have been. There are a few things I would have done a bit different. I really do wish that they utilized Claw a bit differently. And if you skip the spoilers section, you may not know what I'm talking about. But whatever. Excuse me. See the movie. Watch this again. Whole thing this time. You know, don't skip. But apart from that, and like, you know, a few sort of pacing things, I liked it well enough. I certainly enjoyed it. I was never bored. I could predict a few things happening, but that's inevitable, I suppose, with this many superhero movies. They start blurring into each other a little bit. No, it's good. It has a definite identity of its own that you know, sets it apart from the other Marvel movies. And it's well done, and I'd like it if this you know, opened the way for some more kind of African-based sort of science fiction, fantasy, superhero movie type things. You know, because, like I said, I have a tie to that sort of thing, and I've always liked the aesthetic, and I've always thought there's some possibilities, because Africa has an amazing sort of overall culture. You know, I know specifically like the southern part of it, but there's some amazing sort of
folklore and history that you know, we here in the West don't know a whole lot about, and we should, because it's awesome. You know, read about like the city of the original like Great Zimbabwe sometime. That's some amazing stuff for or like Shaka Zulu, or there's all this crazy stuff that we, you know, there's a lot you could put into a movie. But anyway, that's the end of the review. I don't know when my next video is going to be exactly. I may be a little busy in the next couple months. I don't know, but soon as is feasible and I can get around to it, there will be another one. So in the meantime, hope you like this. You should see Black Panther at some point. It's pretty good. And toodaloo.